So this is the Christie Showcase session on our staff survey results and appraisals. So this is just us sharing a little bit around what we've done to get we had a really good turnout for our staff survey, how we've got that, what we've done with the results, and how we hope to improve them in this year's staff survey, and reflecting a little bit specifically around our appraisal scores from last year's staff survey as well. So we hope to share with you a bit about what we've done, how we fed back, and what we want to do to take that forward. So I'm Gavin Rush, I'm the head of costing at the Christie. I've been here just under 1.5 years, so I would have participated. This is the first time I'd have participated in this survey in this trust, but I've been in the NHS for a while, so I've participated in it previously. Sorry, Sharon, you froze, so we carried on without you.
I'm not sure what happened.
I'll pass back over to you now.
Yeah, I popped the presentation out to my big screen and then it disappeared, but I'm back. I'm sure it's not Friday the 13th technology playing little blips on me. So I'm Sharon Hassel, I'm the Assistant Director of Finance for Financial Services at the Christie. I've been at the Christie 2.5 years. I've been in the NHS 25 years, so I was feeling a little bit old at the beginning of September when I realised how long I'd been in the NHS. So trying to think whether this was the first or second staff survey I'd done, but obviously I've done quite a few staff surveys over the years, and I gave positive comments. I do enjoy my role at the Christies. I'll introduce Richard, even though he's not on the call, because I know he's very proud of our results. So you can see Richard's little picture there. So Richard's he's been at the Christie 2 years. He came as the interim deputy director and he's now the substantive deputy director. So we've got quite a new team as well at the Christie. And I will pass across to Sarah and Anna to introduce themselves as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Hi, everybody. My name's Sarah and I'm one of the divisional finance managers at the Christie. So I work in financial management and me and my team look after 2 of the clinical divisions, and we tend to cover a lot of the NHS treatment care side of things. So areas such as radiotherapy, chemotherapy and haematology, just to name a few. I've worked at the Christie for 5 years now, so I think, yeah, coming up to 5 years this month. And this has been my first ever NHS role since I joined the trust. I've had a few roles since I've been here, but first ever sort of organisation that I've worked in. Previously to that, I used to work in finance in the hospitality industry, which was very different. And yeah, so far so good. I feel very proud to work for the NHS and really enjoying it so far. And I will pass over to Anna now.
Hi everyone, I'm Anna. I'm the Assistant Divisional Finance Manager for the division that Sarah mentioned. So we look after network services and medical physics. I've been at the Christie for 2.5 years now, but I've been in the NHS for about 5. I used to work at a CCG previously, so it was a bit of a shift to go to a trust from a commissioner, but I definitely enjoy working at the Christie. It's not just finance, you get to do lots of other things that help you connect with the clinical staff as well. So I love it.
Thank you, Anna. So we've got a little bit on here what we're going to cover. We're going to look at our scores and our results, how we engage with the staff and the importance of giving the feedback, and a little bit about our journey. And then we'll talk about our achievements, which we're very proud of, and then what the next steps are going forward. So we'll just move on, Gavin, to the next one. So these are our scores. So we're very, very proud of our scores. We had in the previous survey had a response rate of 72%, and this year we got up to 80%. So there's no pressure on us this year to try and beat that score again for the survey that is out at the moment. We was ranked amongst the top scores in the country, including the highest scores on 3 of the categories, which you can see across here on these 2 graphs that are on this slide. And we saw an improvement in the We Are Always Learning, particularly around appraisals. And as part of the slides, we're going to talk about our appraisals, a bit of the processes, and we've got some feedback on there. So that's it for that slide.
Yeah, so I just wanted to go through a little bit on how we fed this information back to our finance team. So we wanted to make this the feedback process an engagement process. So it's not just us asking for information, so that people can see that we're using the information they're filling out, that we're actually doing something with it, and hopefully see that we're making a difference. So it's not just a one-sided process. We really wanted to get that feedback and make this a two-way communication. So we started by the big table on the right of your screen. So this is a very high level summary, and you can see the color coordination on the cells. The cells is when the greens are where we are better than the trust position, and the ambers are for where we're in line with the trust position. Then the dots next to each figure is where we've either improved, maintained, or if we've reduced in any of those areas. So you can see there's a lot of green on there. We're better than the trust average on almost everything, or we maintain. So we're not below trust average in any area. And there are a lot of greens and yellows on there as well in terms of how we've done on our scores. So we've improved or maintained almost everything. And the areas that we've reduced, they're small reductions. So we're happy that we've been able to maintain a high level from year to year. That we then went into a deep dive into each area. So we looked at, so for example, compassionate and inclusive, we looked at specific questions, how we've moved on them, what the movement is, and we benchmarked our scores against the national information from One NHS Finance. So this really helped us try and isolate some of the reasons for those movements. And if we've reduced, then why have we reduced? Can we work that out? Is it across the board, or is it potentially just one person? And if there are big movements that aren't necessarily corresponding with the overall result, so if there's a particular area we've moved really well in, or a particular area we've done really bad in, but it's offset, trying to look at those areas and pull them out so that we can work out how we can improve in more specific areas rather than just generally accepting the good scores. So I'm going to hand back over now to Sarah and Anna to talk about some of their experiences with staff surveys and appraisals.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. So today I'm going to talk about and just reflect on the annual sort of appraisal process and share my views on what I think worked well for me from a personal perspective. So we predominantly work remotely as a finance function since COVID. So Teams video calls is sort of the norm for us now, and I'm sure that's the same for a lot of colleagues on the call today. So one thing that we changed for the appraisal was to ensure that it was done face to face. We also did it at an off-site location, so not at work. We sort of went to a nice coffee shop to do that, and that really made the process feel different, and also meant you got to have a nice piece of cake, which was lovely as well. But what I think it did allow is it allowed us to, both myself and my manager, to really switch off from the day-to-day duties. So there was no emails popping up on the screen, and I think it just helped the conversation flow more organically because we were sort of sat face to face and rather than on the screen. Another thing that I found useful was we both put quite a lot of time in advance to prepare and really think about what I wanted to get out of my next year at the Christie. And it just meant that on the day we could spend our time talking about that rather than trying to think of ideas, which I always struggle to think of things on the spot. So I found having that time set aside beforehand was really beneficial. And then in regards to sort of setting the objectives and agreeing them, myself and my manager made sure that they were a good mix of challenging but also achievable. So just finding that right balance of being out of my comfort zone, but meant that I could actually achieve it as well. I also found that the appraisal process for me didn't just feel like a 1 hour tick box job. It felt really bespoke to me, and I could tell from the comments of my manager that it was tailored for me specifically. But one thing that I have really appreciated is the sort of informal reviews that I've noticed my managers put in throughout the year. So recently, as an example, I accepted an invite for a meeting, and it was for us to run through elements of her role that I was really interested in, so sort of external reporting to GM. And then she later told me in our weekly one-to-one that she'd done that on purpose as part of my development plan, because she was aware that it was one of the areas that we hadn't yet got round to ticking off. And I know at this moment in time in particular, we've got quite a lot of staffing shortages in financial management, and it's quite easy to stop a lot of this sort of development stuff when that happens. But I really sort of appreciated the time and how much she valued that as being an important part of, you know, business as usual as well. And I think the final thing I just wanted to say from the appraisal process is I think it's really helped me work out how I can conduct appraisals better from a manager perspective as well. So just reflecting on how I found it myself, I found that useful in making sure that I provide, you know, valuable appraisals to members of my team. I think that's everything for me on that one, but I'll hand over to Anna now.
Thanks, Sarah. So I did my last appraisal over Teams, so not quite face to face, but we have met some previous managers face to face in a coffee shop for one of our regular one-to-ones. So that was really nice. But just reflecting back on my last appraisal, it just we follow a structured template really in our team for appraisals, which I think is quite good because it prompts you and your manager to reflect on your achievements and areas for improvement beforehand. So like Sarah mentioned, we both, myself and my manager, spent some time beforehand going through the template and filling things out, and it just meant that we were more prepared for it. And it's something you can use to prepare for the meeting like I did, but it also gives you a chance to use it as a template. If you haven't prepared, you can sort of use it as a prompt for conversation during the meeting, and it just gives the appraisal a better flow. You can use it as a guide for an informal chat. So maybe if you want to have, you know, some informal chats during your one-to-ones to prepare you for the appraisal in the future, you can sort of use it for that as well, which is good. And it gives the discussion that bit of structure. So I found my last appraisal really rewarding because it highlighted some accomplishments I didn't realise I had achieved. And it was a nice reflection of how far I've come during my time at the Christie. And it was just good to get some recognition from my manager, which is something that we get in our team anyway. I think our managers are really good at giving you that good feedback, as well as obviously some areas for improvement. But I think when you have a formal appraisal, it is good to just get that recognition because it makes you realise, you know, how much you've achieved in the past year. And just a quick one on the staff surveys. I did think that they were good just because it lets you see what the rest of your finance team feels. So we just work in a smaller team in financial management, but this survey, you know, the results show you what everybody else in finance thinks, and it made me realise just that we're all relatively on the same page, and it just means our core values align, and I think that makes working here that bit more enjoyable. I'll pass back over to Gavin.
Thanks, Anna. And I just wanted to circle back to something Sarah said around her manager's appraisals, and I think I found it during my time in the NHS that when appraisals are really a top-down process in some respects, that when your senior managers have good appraisals, that feeds down to the team and it sets the right tone. So obviously not appraisal as a dictation of top-down objective setting, but that the tone of an appraisal is set from the top and it disseminates down throughout the team. Certainly that's what I found in my experience, and when we've had new managers come in who have been better at appraisals, that I've seen that change the way my managers delivered my appraisal, and that's had an effect on how I deliver the appraisal of other people in the team. So I just want to share that reflection as well. So moving on to our appraisal documentation. So just to touch a little bit on the formal side of what we cover. So our appraisals are split into 3 sections. The first section is a health and wellbeing check. So it's a little box and a score of 1 to 5 of how you're doing. So very simple, not in depth, but focuses the conversation on the individual, focuses our appraisal around that not just work, and starts it off about how the person's doing, so that this is a personal, tailored approach, and that any issues can be addressed there, or at least considered there, before you get into, you've not met this objective, you have done well at this, how are you how's the role gone? So it really centers that conversation around what's working for the person, not around a box ticking exercise. The second part of the appraisal, which in a lot of cases is, or at least since I've been doing them, is the chunkier side of it, is the reflective side. So there's 4 boxes that just center your conversation around the role, what you've done, what's gone well, areas that you feel you might need more support in, areas you feel you might be able to work a bit more independently in. So it's really that opportunity to reflect, and you feedback to your manager on how things have gone, but also your manager to feedback to you. So it's that reflection, but with a two-way conversation. And then for the final part to be the moving forward, what are the next steps, and what are we going to do next, or at least the point of what you would like to get out of the next 12 months. Which then brings us on to the third section, which is the actual objective setting. So we only do the objective setting after we've had that personal, professional review and brought all that together. So once those conversations are complete, we'll then move on to the objective setting. The first objective is always a health and well-being objective. So those goals are set first. And the thing I like about the appraisal in the Christie, as over where I've been previously, is that the training element, so your training needs and development needs, are set as part of that objective process. So you're setting your objectives, you're setting how they're being measured, and you're setting what training you may need or might want, able to support you to deliver that. I think sometimes the training element can be an afterthought and is a bit rushed through with appraisals, but with this, it really focuses it in relation to what you're doing and helps to ensure you're equipped to deliver the objectives you need to. So it lets you identify them both in line with one another. So they're just a brief example and a few thoughts on the more formal side of how our appraisals work. And I'm going to pass back over now to Sharon to talk about some of the outcomes from the staff survey and appraisals.
Thanks, Gavin. Right, so we've got the slide here is the you said we did. So we had a look at what our staff were saying to us and how we could try and help them and improve our working ways. So we'd got developed plans for a hot desk. So we all work remotely. We've still got our offices, they're slightly off the site, off the main Christie site, but more or less next door to the hospital. So we set up a hot desk facility so that people were able to book the desk, so they knew that when they were going in on site, there was somewhere for them to sit and do their work. Then we've also done the signposts, the trust-wide comms. So we now have a lot of information on a weekly update that we share with the team every week, and it's got lots of links in it. This week's we put on the One NHS Finance Appraisal Guide, so I'm hoping that'll be useful to some of the newer managers. Obviously, you've heard we're doing a really good job with our appraisals, but we're always aiming to improve a little bit more as well. Start planning the away day for later in the year. So we had an away day last year. It was off-site at the Old Trafford cricket ground. We had somebody from the service came along and talked about some of the treatments and the procedures they do with our patients, and it was about making that difference and how the finance team make a difference. We've got another away day planned for this year in December, so we're going to bring it together with a bit of our Christmas social element. We normally have a separate Christmas social team day where we do a buffet and a secret Santa and a quiz. So we're going to bring that all together, so it'll be formal with the away day, but then a bit relaxed, like over the lunchtime period. And we're doing that based on some of the feedback from the staff survey. So we felt some of the lower scores related to working under pressure and the additional deadlines, and so now we're going to focus on how we can manage that and give the team the support and the input that they want to give and how we can change things. Then social gatherings. So again, because we work off-site remotely, it can make it difficult for us to be social with each other and get to know the rest of the team, especially for new starters as well. Since I've been at the Christie, I've just worked off-site, but I feel that I have been able to get to know the team because we've done some of these social activities. So we've got the coffee morning, which is a remote activity. People join a Teams call and just have a bit of a chat. We do action weeks. So we've had a Health and Wellbeing Day we did earlier this week for the World Mental Health Day. And there were just small Teams calls that we set up. So there were 15 minutes for some informal ones where we did some yoga and we had a quiz, and then we had a couple of formal sessions that were a bit longer, and we had some people external to the Christie. So we had Gail Wells from MIAA. She came along and gave us a bit of an update on what they've been doing at their Trust for Health and Wellbeing. And then with my team, the other week we went out and did some bowling. We've got our Christmas party booked in. So we do get together outside of work. So, and it just builds those relationships with the other members of the teams. And then setting up an equality, diversity and inclusion committee. So that committee has been set up. Gavin's our champion for EDI. We've put ourselves forward for a few awards because we think we're doing a really good job and we want to, give ourselves that recognition. We had an EDI week early in the year, similar to what we did for the Health and Wellbeing Day this week, but we did it over a longer period. And again, we did a mixture of formal sessions. So we had some external speakers come along and did like lunchtime sessions for us. And then we had some informal sessions where we got together and we talked about foods from across the world, what we like, the different foods. If anybody could speak a different language, we shared, we had some really good slides. As you can see from these slides, Gavin's really good at putting together the slides. So he did some really good slides for us and included like a sign language for the day, and just to make us think about things differently. So we've been listening to what our team said. As you can see on this slide, you said, we did. Then we'll move on to the next slide, Gavin.
Thanks, Sharon. So this slide's looking at so what was the impact of these changes, the appraisal process, what we've done. So the movement from our 2021 to our 2022 staff survey, we've maintained or improved in every area except one, and that would be working flexibly. So we had a slight reduction of 3% there. So we're now trying to understand, is that a symptom of a wider issue, or is that a specific issue that couldn't be dealt with any other way? Obviously we do work very flexibly. We're all remote working, so sometimes we can be a victim of our own flexibility in that way, and we can be over flexible in some areas. Then as we said previously, we achieved some of the highest scores in a couple of the areas, and we are always learning was one that nationally was performed quite low or had reduced, and it's one that we'd actually seen an improvement in. So we were quite proud of that and happy that we were able to move that forward, which bucked the trend a little bit. So I'm going to pass over to Sarah and Anna again to share some of the achievements we think we've made from that help contribute to this success, and hopefully you'll be able to take a few ideas away with you from what we're going to talk about.
Thanks, Gavin. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of areas on here that I'd love to talk about. I think we've mentioned quite a few of them already, but the one that I'm going to talk about today in particular is team site visits. So I think this one fits quite nicely in with the We Are Always Learning theme. So as I've said before, we look after two of the sort of big clinical divisions at the Christie, and there's as part of that, there's lots of outreach sites where we deliver Christie services to patients all over Greater Manchester. and that can be in other NHS trusts, but also in more obscure places such as like hospices and GP surgeries where we can deliver chemotherapy. And the main ethos around that is just trying to treat patients closer to where they live. And as part of that, what we've decided to do in my team of 5, which includes Anna, who's with us today, we've tried to sort of make a conscious effort to go and visit a lot of these sites and really understand what's going on in those areas and how they're different to the main hospital that we know so well. So what we've tried to do is protect time in our diaries every quarter or so, and have a tour of an area, a meet and greet with the key staff. So that could be key budget holders that we speak with on the phone, but we don't ever get to see in real life. So that's always quite nice. And then we tend to use the rest of the day just to sort of borrow a meeting room there and use it as an opportunity to have like a team meeting, and any work that we've saved up that might affect us all, we'll go through that on the day and just make the most of those few hours where we're all actually together, which is always really nice. I think there's loads of benefits to doing this. I think it helps us understand the service, so that all those satellite sites, how they differ to the main trust. I think it helps us when we're doing SLA negotiations. I think if we've been to the site and we understand, visually how it all fits together, I think that helps hold quite a lot of weight with, appraising costings and checking that they're robust and that we've not missed anything out that's key that we might not have thought of because it might not normally be there as part of a service. And I think it also just helps us build those positive budget holder working relationships, which is so important, especially in financial management. I think it makes our job so much more enjoyable, but I think it also makes us do our jobs better as well. So I suppose the other thing is it doesn't just have to be sites that are not at the Christie. There's loads of areas in the trust itself that, we haven't seen or would love to see. Last month, as an example, we went on a tour of the haematology department, and it was brilliant. It was just so fascinating because you got to see real patients being treated on the day. So we watched a patient that was having an apheresis treatment, and that was just so interesting and really helped us join the dots, because a lot of this jargon that we hear it's so technical and medical, but I think when you get to see it face to face, it really does help you understand what's going on. And I think the last thing I wanted to say on it is I think it's been really beneficial to the clinical teams as well. I think it's really nice, for them to see other departments or those support services taking an active interest in patient care and how their departments run. And we've had quite a positive response so far. So I hope that continues. That's everything. I'll pass back over to Anna.
Thanks, Sarah. So the one that I'm going to talk about is the patient surveys. So we were involved in a pilot for patient surveys, which allowed us to come down to the trust and carry out some face-to-face surveys, just in an aim to make the process more beneficial for everyone. This was outside of our regular demands, and so it felt less like work and more like a day out to see the trust, see the budget holders, and just nice things like that. And working from home, sometimes you feel disconnected from the rest of the organisation, and especially the service users. So when the opportunity came up, I was more than happy to get involved because I knew it would give me that sense of connection that I might have been missing. We did the surveys in areas that fell under our division. So myself and Sarah and the rest of our team were familiar with the staff and the service that we were going out to see. So it was really nice because it improved my relationship with the clinical staff, and meeting them face to face and just having that little chat about what happens in their day to day made me appreciate their work a lot more. It also helped me understand their needs, which improved our overall relationship massively. So when they come to me with things like staffing queries and how we can skill mix things because they need another band free, like I understand what they mean because I've been there and I've seen how the shortages impact them. So talking to the patients was really nice, and it made me appreciate where I work. So no matter what they were all going through, they couldn't fault the care they received at the Christie, which was good for us to hear. I was genuinely interested in hearing all their different stories and experiences, and I believe that made them feel less like it was a tick box exercise, what they had to just fill in and put in a box. We did these in the waiting areas, and some patients were on their own. So I'd like to think that helped the time pass quicker for them. And meeting them just helps you link the work that you do in finance to that end goal of providing the excellent care. And I just found it really fulfilling. So not only did it make me feel more connected to the trust, but it also made me feel connected to the patients and allowed me to see the difference that the Christie does actually make. And it just generally made me more passionate about my job. And now other teams across the whole trust are able to take part in these patient surveys. So I think Sharon took part in one, and I think it's just been a positive change for the whole trust. I will pass back over to Sarah for the next bit.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so we thought we'd put a few pictures on just to cheer up the slides a little bit. So these are a sort of collection of charity and social events that we've taken part in recently. So we tend to try and do different events, you know, as often as we can. Now, obviously, everyone's got their home lives as well, so it's not always as often as we would like to do. But as you can see on these pictures, there are sort of family members included here. So it is we do try and encourage it, not just colleagues meeting up on the weekend, but, you know, bringing family and friends as well. So I'll just talk through a couple of examples. So the first one on the left-hand side, that's when we all went up Kinder Scout. So that was a social event that was organised by one of our Keen Walker colleagues, and he led the way. So this was a Sunday morning in October. We met and braved Kinder Scout armed with our family and friends. And I think this day is quite memorable for me because there was a few sketchy moments to this day, actually. We got a bit lost and went off path. And I think there was a moment where our Director of Finance, Sally, was a bit nervous that 20 or so of her team were lost on a mountain. But thankfully, we did all get back home safe and in time for work on the Monday morning after a hot bath. But it was a lovely day regardless. The weather wasn't great, as you can probably tell on that picture there. So then going over to the right hand side, that's just a picture of the Rounders team. So every year the Trust hosts an annual event where we do a Rounders tournament. So it's really competitive. I think they ask for every department to submit their team nominations, and I think they get booked up. And I think this year they got booked up so quickly that they ended up having to put 2 separate tournaments on because there wasn't enough time and space to fit us all in on one day. So I've been on the team for the past 3 years. We were the reigning champions for a few years and came joint third this year. Our team name was also quite aptly named the Rounding Errors, which I think is quite a nice finance ring to it. But it's a really nice event. We encourage our colleagues to come down and cheerlead and, you know, cheer us on. And as you can see in that photo, some of our colleagues brought their children and some of them ended up playing on the day and were really good. And I think I'm really glad that they did come and play because their competitive nature shone through, which was brilliant. And I think that day just has so many benefits, team building, getting to know new colleagues to the organisation that you might not get to see day to day. There's also an opportunity to see other colleagues from the Trust, which is lovely. And then the picture in the middle, so this is when we took part in Born Survivor. So for anyone that hasn't heard of it, I was told that it was a bit like Tough Mudder, but without the chance of being electrocuted. And they told me that after I'd already paid for my place on it. So that was a 10K route with about 30 obstacles built into it. So anything from jumping over fire, crawling through tunnels filled with water, trying to do monkey bars, which I really couldn't do, so I ended up just swimming through the mud, But it was an experience, and it was a really good team building day as well. So mostly colleagues from finance, but we did have John, who's the chap in the middle, join us, who's our head of radiotherapy. So that was nice as well. That sort of brought somebody else from the organisation into the day. And this one was part of a wider charity fundraising challenge that the Christie and the finance team at the Christie had been working towards. So our former director of finance, Joanne Fitzpatrick, sadly lost her life to cancer, and she was treated at the Christie, and she also worked at the Christie for over 30 years. So in honour of Joanne, the finance team wanted to sort of celebrate her life by raising as much money as we could for the Christie charity. And the way that we got to our target was we worked out, I think it was David calculated how many days Joanne had worked at the trust, and we pledged to raise £1 for every day. So I think it was just under £11,000 was our target. And I'm really pleased to say that we exceeded it. And I think the total at the moment is just under 15,000. So that's an amazing achievement that so many members of the finance team were all part of. It was a real team effort, and there was loads of different events that took place to get us to that target. There was people climbing Snowdon in the middle of the night. There was skydives going on, cake sales. I think we even had a finance lottery going on. And I think that's just really reflective of how the team worked together. Tried to make it really inclusive, so it wasn't all about sporting events. I know a lot of those pictures on there do look quite sporty, but there was also cake involved as well, and lots of other things. And I suppose I have no doubt that all of these events and working together contributes to the sort of positive working culture that I think is visible in our staff survey results. So I will hand back now to you, Gavin. The next slide. Oh, sorry, this is Anna. Hand over to Anna.
Thanks, Sarah. So one of the other things that we do to help, just improve relationships between finance is something called Action Week. So Action Week is another thing we do in finance, and it involves us all working in our individual teams to create something together, and then we all sort of meet to showcase what we've done. We usually meet on Teams just so everybody can share their screen and talk through everything. It's usually something fun, but it could also be a team challenge. So in financial management, we've done things like covering the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air app with a financy twist. We've done the Macarena dance outside of the office, and we've done cheerleading on top of the staff car park, which you can see on those slides. I did try to pick the least incriminating stills from the video, so nothing too embarrassing from us. Although this is out of some people's comfort zone, once it's all done and we've shared the videos with the wider finance team, it's really fun to watch back. It's something light-hearted that we can laugh about, and it just allows any new starters as well to meet everyone face-to-face in an icebreaker-like situation. So just another little thing that we do to help improve our real-life relationships. But that's it on this slide. I'll pass back over to Gavin and Sharon.
Thanks, Anna and Sarah. I think I've learnt a lot since I've been at the Christies of what skills that finance people have got. So from you can see from those action weeks, there's people in our team who can do handstands, there's people who can do dancing, there's people who can do singing. So not only are we good at our spreadsheets and interacting with our patients, we do have those other wider skills, which I'm sure contribute to us all being good finance staff and accountants. So on this slide, we're looking at the next step. So yeah, we've got really good scores, really good response rate in our last staff survey. We're on to this year's staff survey, and we're wanting to maintain that. But more importantly, it's good to get those scores, and it does give a reflection of what's happening in the team. But more importantly, it is, that we work, you spend a long time at work, and we want to make sure that people are enjoying their roles, doing a good job, and we are making that difference to the patients. So the first one here is about being compassionate and inclusive. So to achieve this, we have our lunchtime learning sessions, and we have them roughly once a month. Sometimes we'll have a bit of a break when it's, we've got lots on, when it's year end and planning and what have you, but mostly, so we've got one next week which is looking at our values and behaviours. Someone from the HR team is going to come and talk to us and talk through the values and behaviours and how we decided what they were for the Christie and how we achieved them. I'm really pleased that we've just been shortlisted as one of the finalists for the Christie Colleagues Awards, the behind the scenes team of the year, and that was us demonstrating how we do achieve the Christie's values and behaviours. And hopefully when we have our session next week, we'll learn a bit more about that. We have some of the service providers come and talk to us. So we've had a session on CAR-T, so we've learnt about that treatment, which is just amazing how we can treat our patients and hopefully get rid of the cancer. We've had someone come and talk to us about the different scanners we have, so how they do the diagnostics and how they can see where the cancer might be hiding and then what they need to do to treat it. We've had somebody from our international travel team, so we do go out, we've got colleagues who go out all around the world. I think we've got some people going to Kenya, we've got some partnerships with Kenya, and obviously you learn from people from across the world. So, and then we have internal audit have come along and talk to us, fraud have come and talk to us, external audit, so a broad range for the lunchtime learning. We've had the sponsorship programme. So on our EDI week, a colleague from one of the other trusts came and told us all about the sponsorship programme. We have a career development culture. So we've had quite a few people in the team have had internal promotions, which is always, really good for individuals, helps with the motivation as well. And then we've got the protected learning time, which links back to that lunchtime learning as well. And then we work flexibly. So we work from home the majority of the time. For me, that makes a massive difference. Not having that commute makes a massive difference. Well, as you can see from the staff survey results, we're still getting our job done. We achieve our deadlines as we need to, and we still provide a really good service to the trust from the finance function. And as well as having that remote working, we also have the flexible working patterns. So we offer the flexi time so people can make up their hours and then take the time back. Or we've also got some, I think 9 in 10 days flexible working patterns, some compressed hours. So quite a few different flexible workings. And then, and we're hoping this helps towards, the improving our workloads and our recruitment and our developments. And then we've also got the focus on the health and wellbeing. And as Gavin said before, on our appraisals, that is our very first question that we ask people, how are you feeling? So lots of focus on that health and wellbeing. And I'm going to pass across to Gavin to finish up on this slide.
Thanks, Sharon. So yeah, the next steps are for always learning. So firstly to reflect on what we've gathered, what we've learned from the staff survey and other sources, and to feed back on it, as I said earlier, to make sure that this is a two-way process, which both helps engage and encourage that we're doing the right thing, that we're interpreting the information correctly, but also to encourage people to engage again in the future if people can see we are actively listening and trying to be proactive around the issues they're raising. We're looking at ways we can both share best practice and ways that we can learn from other people. And we're trying to formalise put some more formal training in, particularly around appraisals, to ensure there's that uniformity. And I know from an EDI perspective, we're looking at a few other areas where we can try and put more formal training in to support people in delivering, to doing their job, not necessarily better, but into being more well-rounded individuals and having that different perspective to help them do their job to the best of their ability. So the themes that we're focusing on going forward, a big theme that came out of our last staff survey results was around workload and scope. So our next away day for December is focusing on working smarter, not harder, and adding value. So we're trying to put big emphasis on how we can deliver, how we can cut waste, how we can deliver the value adding parts of our job, and how we can cut down on the parts that don't add as much value or don't add value at all. We're involving the team in these events, so it's not just one or two people setting up all the health and well-being, the staff engagement events, the away days, the eating out. We are trying to involve the wider team, both from a feedback perspective, but also to get them involved in the working group. So this is really a team effort. It's not down to one or two people delivering this program. The whole team are involved with it. We want to learn from the wider network. We want to pinch with pride and share what we're doing, but also take as much back that we can to our own organisation as well. I think there's always areas for improvement. Even if you're doing something brilliantly this year, doesn't necessarily mean doing the same next year will be right. So we're working in a dynamic environment, so we're always changing and learning, and we want to learn from others. And as we mentioned before, we want to encourage staff development. So yes, for career progression, yes, for succession planning, but that doesn't always mean within the lines that people are currently working in. It's looking at what someone's skill set is, what they want to achieve, and actually encouraging people, if that's sometimes outside their current role, or for the more specialist areas of finance, going back to the more fundamental skill set and looking at how we can develop people in different ways. So being part of the costing team, which is quite technical and difficult to recruit to, we've opened up to a more analytic background from certain people in the team, and we're more flexible around that. It's a very bespoke area of finance, so sometimes our training needs, we might want to take us away from costing a little bit and be a bit more varied. So the trust are very supportive of different training opportunities, both internally and supporting people to go externally to get these opportunities as well. So that's it from us. So we've got about 10 minutes now for any questions. So if anyone would like to raise their hand or put any questions in the chat box, we will try and answer them as best as we can. So I hope you found some of that useful, and I hope there's a few bits you can take away. If there's anything you'd like to know more on, or anything you'd like to feedback from that presentation, we'd love to hear from you.